Hey guys, so I finally finished reading 1984, and I guess I have a bunch of thoughts on it. So first of all, spoiler alert, I'm going to ruin the book for you. Basically, there's a guy named Winston, and he's living in 1984. But the book says something about if you reverse the numbers, so it'd be 1984, 4891. And that would be the year when all of this would take place, when there'd be so much suppression and whatever. And basically he's living in a world where everything you do, everything you say, everything is recorded, and everything can be seen and heard. And although they can't, I guess it'd be like the government at that time, although the government can't control what you, although the government can't monitor your thoughts, it can control what you think in the way that they brainwash you from childhood to think certain things, to say certain things. They even have their own language where they don't have negatives, or there's certain words that they don't use because they want you to have no concept of those words. Something like think and then forget. The word forget would not remember. There'd be unthink or some contradictory thing that basically would not let you look at the opposite of it. So for good, there would be no good. There'd just be ungood, which still has the word good in it. So you still have the thought good, but you don't have the thought of bad or evil, and you have no conception of those words because you were never exposed to those words. In that world, those words never existed, so therefore they have no meaning. So therefore the only thing you know has a meaning is the word good. And if it's ungood, it means, I guess, that it's lacking good, that it's lacking goodness, something like that. Anyways, my whole thought on it was that how would it be like to live in a world where you were basically scared to express any sort of idea you had, and anything you wanted to do, anything you wanted to say, you could not do it because there's always something against it. And in a way, maybe exaggerated, but in a way we already live in a world that's like that, where there's things you can't do, there's things you can't say, there's things that would be unacceptable by society. Now, it's not because the government condones it, it's more because of, us as people wouldn't want that type of behavior in public. But that's just an example. But now, an example that does apply to the day in some way, perhaps in other countries like North Korea, is that you can't speak against the leader. And in this case, there's a big brother, or basically what it would be like God. And they reference the Wizard of Oz, which is like, you have the guy behind the curtain, but the face that you see at the beginning of the movie, the big giant face, it doesn't exist. It exists because the idea of it exists, but it doesn't exist because it really isn't any physical being. And that's the same thing with this. Big Brother isn't a physical being, he's just an idea that exists. And it's really the political party, the government, whatever. And this exists in other places as well, where you can't speak against the government, you can't say anything about the government, you can't be against the government. Which also makes me think a little bit about religion too. And towards the end it kind of made me think of religion a little bit more because of what I covered in my core humanities classes. Some of the history during the Middle Ages and around that time when Christianity was becoming popular. And so my reference to that would be, in this book, 1984, they had a period when Winston was in the jail and he was being tortured and beaten and all sorts of different things just to get him to basically erase everything he knew, everything he thought, So an example was 2 + 2 = 5. They wanted him to believe in that no matter what, and he had to convince himself that it was true. Now this reminds me of religion, and maybe you're offended by that, whatever. Is now referencing back to my class that I took, that there are occasions when there'd be Christians that'd be coming into a village and then killing all the people and then convincing them that Jesus Christ is Savior or any one of those things, or God is the Savior, and basically imposing their ideologies onto them and forcing them to accept their ideologies, whether or not those ideologies are true. Or even if they had so many contradictions that couldn't be believed. And I don't know, I just kind of think of that because I noticed that there are inconsistencies and a whole bunch of things that are wrong with the people imposing their views in the Middle Ages to other peoples on Christianity. But this is the same concept, more or less, that Big Brother and the organization imposed their views on Winston, and he had to accept them. And I just think, and it's not just Christianity, I think it could apply to any religion that uses brainwashing to impose their views on others. And whether or not those things are true, we can never know for certain, but we're brainwashed through that system that we must believe it is true. And I just couldn't imagine a world in which not religion was imposed on you, but just the thought of government and it being okay to record all your thoughts or whatever. Now, another thing that I was thinking of is, basically in this world you were scared to talk to anybody else. You basically sat there and minded your own business. And it was funny, I thought, that he gave a quick thought in the book. There was somebody maybe 6 desks in front of him or behind him or something like that. It was just pretty much in the same area they worked, but he had no idea who they were, and they worked there for some 10 years together. So think of that. Seeing the same person for 10 years, yet never knowing their name and never talking to them at all. Now, I know some of you may be like, oh, well, I could live with that. But in this case, it's not that you want to live with that, it's that you have to live like that. You don't have an option of whether you want to talk to them or not, because you're so scared to do so in the first place. Talking to anybody about anything is like a risk in that world. And I do think this can be a possibility sometime in the future, when technology becomes more controllable and whatever. I mean, just think of like making videos or whatever. There could be a day when I'm making a video and I say something and some screen pops up and tells me you can't say that. Or I could make the video and then anything that isn't acceptable to be said is deleted out of the video or something like that. Without me even knowing, or I'd be aware of it. Basically, the whole book revolves around the socialism and how the government would control all your thoughts and prevent you from basically expressing yourself. And I don't know, it was also funny that there were things, the brainwashing, just it was funny at some points. It'd be, I can remember one of the scenes was they were receiving 30 grams of chocolate as a ration. So everybody was motorcycles, God, hate them. So everybody was entitled to 30 grams of chocolate a week. But then the government announced everybody's entitled to only 20 grams. There's a reduction. But then the next day, they said everybody has increased the rations to up to 20 grams a week. I don't think they gave reference, but they said everybody has increased the rations up to 20 grams a week. So now, they flipped the switch. Instead of losing, they made it seem like they gained. And every year they lost. Every year something happened. Every year something got taken away. But they gained. That's what the government said, that they gained. Now this brings me into another thought in the book. Was something about being able to take away from people and then making it seem like they gained things. Making it seem like they were better off. But in reality what the government was doing was it was oppressing people further and further and further. So it was basically depriving them of food, depriving them of education, depriving them of pretty much everything, making them work earlier, pretty much forcing them into slavery slowly. Up until the point where the slavery wasn't slavery anymore. That's what it has always been. And that's what they wanted to do. And it also gave an example of, or a thought of, that people could be living in a utopia. But instead of living in a utopia, it says that there'd always be some sort of way, something in human nature that would prevent us from reaching a utopia. Now what that is, can't really say. But according to the thoughts in the book, something would prevent us from reaching a utopia. And there would always be a ruling class that would keep oppressing and keep oppressing and keep oppressing. And so the way you see structure today with class systems or whatever you want to call it, the way you see things is the way things will always stay, because people in power will keep their power. People aspiring to power will always be aspiring to power, but will never get it. And the masses, the proletariat, the bottom of the bottom, will never reach the top because they will never revolt. Something like that. Now I could expand on those ideas, but I don't have enough thoughts in my head right now to go in further detail on those thoughts, so I'll just leave them for another day. I think this is all I have to say about 1984, so thanks for watching.